This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, good morning, Rabbi Glatstein. Baruchim Abam to the Kollel Agad de Perka here in Kew Garden Hills, New York. This is our second to last year before the fateful day of Tisha B'Av. And we begin with a pasuk in Tehillim, in Psalms, chapter 90. Something we say every Matzai Shabbos. V'hi noyam Hashem Elokeinu Aleinu. May the pleasantness of Hashem our God be upon us. Umasei yadeinu. May our handiwork, kainu aleinu, affirm. Umasei yadeinu kainuneo. Please affirm our handiwork. This is a tefillah we say every Matzai Shabbos from Parak Tzadi in Tehillim. And it's interesting that the tefillah is specifically that the Rebbeinu Shalom should affirm not only ma'aseinu, but ma'asei yadeinu, the work of our hands. The emphasis is on the hands, the yadayim. Why emphasize the yadayim over here? Why does it say ma'asei yadeinu? It should say ma'aseinu, whatever we do. Whatever we do with our hands. And if we don't need to use our hands, we don't use our hands. But why the emphasis on the hands? Why does the pasuk say it twice? Ma'asei yadeinu, kainunu aleinu. Ma'asei yadeinu, kainuneo. But even though this is a tefillah we say every Matzai Shabbos, nevertheless this tefillah has a specific reference because it was invoked for the first time, not in Tehillim, but by Aaron HaKohen. So in Parsha Shmini, in Parak Yud, Pasuk Chav Beis and Chav Gimel, Vayisa Aaron es yadav el ha'am. Aaron lifted up his hands to the people, Vayivarachem, and he blessed them. Vayired me'asoi sachatos ve'oilo v'ashlamim. He came down from performing the chatas, the oila, and the shlamim. Vayavoy Moshe v'Aaron al oyel moyed. Moshe and Aaron came to the oyel moyed. Vayetzu vayivarchu es ha'am. Question is, how many brachos did they give Klal Yisrael? Because Pasuk Chav Beis already says vayivarchem. Why again in Pasuk Chav Gimel does it say vayivarchu? Well, Rashi explains the first pasuk is a reference to the bracha that is specific to Aaron HaKohen, and that is Berchas Kayanim. But in pasuk Chav Gimel says Rashi, Vayetzu vayivarchu es ha'am amru v'hi noyam Hashem Elokeinu aleinu yihi ratzon shetishra shechina b'masei yadechem. In other words, the tefillah of v'hi noyam the very first time was invoked when the Mishkan was erected. Why did they say v'hi noyam l'fi shekol shivas yimei hamiluim? Because for the 7 days of the miluim she'amidu Moshe l'mishkan, that Moshe put up the Mishkan, v'shimesh b'ay, and he served in it, uparko b'chol yom, and he took it down every day, lo sharsa b'ay shechina, the shechina did not rest. V'hayu yisrael nechlamim, Klal Yisrael were ashamed. V'oimrim l'Moshe, Moshe Rabbeinu, kol ha'toyreach shetarachnu shetishra shechina b'eineinu v'neida sheneskaper lanu avoyno egel. We did this for nothing. We made the Mishkan so that we could demonstrate that you forgave us for the egel, and obviously it didn't go, it was a no-go. Didn't work, because you're not coming. Amar lohem, zeh hadavar shotziv Hashem ta'asu, v'yeira aleichem kved Hashem, and they davened, v'hinoyam Hashem Elokeinu aleinu. So what we learn from here is that the tefillah of v'hinoyam is specific to the Mishkan, the Mikdash, that it's a reference to the Shechina resting on Makoim Asher Yivchar Hashem. V'hinoyam Hashem Elokeinu aleinu refers to the Mishkan and the Mikdash. In fact, Rashi in Tehillim says the two references of Umasei Yadeinu Kainunu Aleinu, Umasei Yadeinu Kainuneo, Shnei Pa'amim, says Rashi, one was for the Mishkan and one is in general. What is the connection between the tefillah of V'hinoyam and the Mishkan and the Beis Hamikdash? Do we have any Kohanim here? We have a few. Okay. Well, when the Kohanim, when the priest clan blesses the Jewish people, they don't just bless us, but they raise up their hands. What in the world are they doing with their hands? What are hands? Like, what do hands got to do with it? You want to give us a bracha? We'll take your bracha. You don't want to give us a bracha? Don't give us a bracha. What do your hands got to do with it? The hands... What?
He said by Sa'arun.
Vayisa Aaron es yadav. Aaron lifted up his hands. Why is he lifting up his hands? That's what people talk. They cover their mouth with their hands. Yeah, it's better just to... What are the hands? The hands are holy? The hands are not holy. What's holy about the hands? If anything, you wake up in the morning, there's only one part which isn't... What do the hands got to do with it? Zzz, like this. Why are the hands involved in Birchas Kayanim? Something special about the hands. Hacharakim, hey charakim, 5 cracks. What kedusha is there in the hands? The Gemara Menachos tells us something very interesting, and it should be familiar to you from Shweki. Okay? The Gemara Menachos says, Yavai Yadid, Ben Yadid, B'yivne Yadid, Li Yadid, B'chelkoi Shal Yadid, B'yiskapru B'ay Yadidim. Right? Yavai Yadid, let the Yadid come. Ben Yadid, the son of the Yadid. V'yivne Yadid, and build the Yadid. Li Yadid, for the Yadid. B'chelkoi Shal Yadid, in the share of the Yadid. V'yiskapru B'ay Yadidim. So what is this talking about? Yavai Yadid, let the Yadid come. Zeh Shloimei HaMelech. D'chsiv v'yishlach v'yanosan anovi v'yikr shema Yadid Yobavar Hashem. So the Yadid, who is the Yadid? Shloimei. Ben Yadid, descendant of the Yadid, who's the Yadid? Avraham. Zeh Avraham d'chsiv Mali Yadidi v'veisi. What are you doing in my house, Avraham? So Shlomo is the Yadid. He's the descendant of the Yadid. He's going to build the Yadid. V'yivne Yadid. Zeh Beis Hamikdash d'chsiv Ma Yadidus Mishkenoi Sayech. How beloved is your dwelling place. So the Yadid, the son of Yadid, will build the Yadid for who? Li Yadid, for the Yadid. Zeh HaKadosh Baruch Hu. D'chsiv Ashira na Li Yadidi. Bechelkoi Shal Yadid, in the Chelek of Yadid. By the way, Rabbi say, whose Shiur is the Beis Hamikdash built? Right? This you should know from Avram Fried. Live in Yamin Omar, Yadid Hashem, Yishkoin, Lavetach, Olav. It says, right? It's also a pasuk in Chumash, right? Live in Yamin Omar, Yadid Hashem, Yishkoin, Lavetach, Olav. V'yiskapru ba Yadidim, and let the Yadidim be atoned for. Elu Yisrael Dasiv Nasati Es Yadidos Nafshi B'Kafa Yivah. So there are a lot of Yadids. Yadid, Ben Yadid, Yivne Yadid, Li Yadid, B'Chelko Shal Yadid, V'Yiskapru Yadidim. 6 Yadidim, right? Perfect words for Yossi Green. V'Yiskapru ba Yadidim. You're not going to understand every joke in the show. If you get most of them, it's good, right? Yiskapru ba Yadidim. Yiskapru. So Rabbi Sai, one thing we learn from here is that anything connected to the Beis Hamikdash is referenced as Yadid. Why is that? I mean, if I were to ask you, what's Shlomo's name? I don't think the word Yadid would be the first thing that comes to mind. But I ask you, what's Avraham's name? No one is going to think of Yadid. And all of a sudden, in reference to the Beis Hamikdash, we have to use dafka the word Yadid. He's going to build what? The Beis Hamikdash. I ask you, tell me 10 names for a Beis Hamikdash. I don't think anyone's going to come up with Yadid. You're going to say Mishkan, Har, Bayis, Sadeh, Mokam, Yivrar Hashem. Yadid is the last thing you're going to come up. No. He's going to build the Yadid. For who? For Hashem. What's Hashem's name? I don't know. Hashem has 7 names. Hashem, Elohim, Kel, Tzavakoi, Shakai. You know? The last, Doidi, Rei, Rayosi. No. For who? For Yadid. And who is it going to atone for? Bnei Yisrael. Right, I ask you, what are the names of Bnei Yisrael? I don't know, Tzoin, Yisrael, Bnei Yaakov, no, Yadidim. All of a sudden, when we refer to Beis Hamikdash, we call it Yadidim. By the way, it's a pasuk in Tehillim. Look at number 7. In Perek Pei Dalet and Tehillim is all about the Beis Hamikdash. Lam natseach ala gitis livnei koirach mizmar ma yedidois mishkenoi secha Hashem tzavakois nichsefa v'gam kol sanavshi lechatzois Hashem libi uvasari yiranu el kelchoi. This is gam tzipar matzabayis. A bird even finds a home. Udarar kain la, and a bird finds a nest. Asher shasa efreicheha. So David HaMelech is praying that Hashem should restore the Beis Hamikdash. By the way, One of the references to Beis Hamikdash here, I just thought of this morning, is Cain, or Durar Cain, a nest. So it's interesting, Rabbi Yaakov Emden writes that the simanim of Shulchan Aruch are all b'hashgacha pratis. The gematria of the simanim in Shulchan Aruch have significance. For example, Hilchos Shofar is in Taf, Kuf, Pei, Vav. Gematria, Shofar. Gematria, Shofar. Hilchos Shofar is in Siman, Gematria, Shofar. Or, for example, it's brought down that if you add up all the simanim of Arachayim, Yoredeya, Even Ezer, Choshen Mishpat, add up all the simanim, it's Begematria, Arachayim, Yoredeya, Choshen Mishpat, Even Ezer. By the way, I once heard from Rav Yitzchak Yosef, he once asked, does anybody know what siman Hilchos Dagim are in Shulchan Aruch? I don't know, I learned Yoredeya, but I didn't remember what siman is. He said it's very simple. Siman Pei Gimel. Rosh Teva is gefilte fish. Right? So you see that everything was written. I heard this from one of the Gedolei Yisrael. Yeah? So all the simanim are the hashgacha pratis, but I came with another one. We just started Hilchos Beis HaKnesses. Siman Kuf Nun, like it says in Tehillim, Udarar Kain La. Okay. Interesting. If you look in the Gemara Menachos, look at number 6. Amar Rabbi Yitzchak, Bisha Shacharat Beis Hamikdash, Matzai HaKadosh Baruch Hu, LaAvraham Shahaya Oimei Beis Hamikdash. When Hashem was destroying Beis Hamikdash, when the Beis Hamikdash was being destroyed, Hashem found Abraham. He's standing there. Amar Loi, Ma'ali Yadidi Beveisi. Hashem says to Abraham, what are you doing here? Interesting. Of all the names Hashem decides to refer to Avraham Avinu, he doesn't say, what is Avraham doing there? Avram, Oy havi Avram. Oh, no, Liyadidi. All of a sudden, when it comes to Beis Hamikdash, everything is the Yadid. The one who built it, the one who produced the one who built it, the place that it's built, the who it's built for, who it's the scaper for, everybody, everything, every connection, Yadid. Haloi davarhu. What's the meaning of this? Okay. In less than 2 weeks, we'll be learning Megillas Eicha. Eicha concludes, Hashiveinu Hashem Elecha v'nashuva Chadesh Yameinu Kikedem. We say, Hashem, return to us. Bring us back to you, and we will return. Renew our days. Chadesh Yameinu Kikedem. Renew our days Kikedem, like yesteryear. I think most would learn what is yesteryear. When was yesteryear? When was yesteryear? So most would learn when the Beis Hamikdash stood. Restore us to when the temple stood. Says the Medrash, no, that's not what it means. Chadesh Yameinu Kekedem Ka'adam Harishon. Restore our days like Adam. Kamada Ad Amar Vayegaresh Es Ha'adam. Hashem exiled Adam. Vayashkein. Where did he dwell? Mikedem leGan Eden. Gan Eden is called Gan Eden Mikedem. Kisamechacha es Yitzircha v'Gan Eden Mikedem. So you say, Ribbon Shalom, bring us back to the good old days of Adam Harishon. And I ask you, why in the world are we invoking Adam Harishon and Eicha? What's Adam Harishon got to do with this? Beis Hamikdash was destroyed. We violated the big three. Avodah Zarah, Gilui Arayah, Shvichas Damim, Bayesheni, Sinas Chinam. The last person on our mind is Adam Harishon. Why are we asking Hashem to restore us to the good old days of Adam Harishon? What's Adam Harishon got to do with Churban Beis Hamikdash, with Megillas Eicha? And lo and behold, we find that the Divrei Chazal illuminate to us a tremendous insight into what took place at the time of the Churban. Because amazingly, if you look in Parshas Bereshis, when Hashem kicked Adam Harishon out of Gan Eden, the Rebbeinu Shalom himself seems to have lamented the same way we lament. And the Rebbeinu Shalom seems to have been saying a kina when he chased Adam Harishon out of Gan Eden, because when Adam Harishon sinned, we have the immortal words, Vayikra Hashem Elokim ha'adam vayomer loi Yekar. Remember the Yiddish taich? Echa is Hebrew. Yiddish, the way that it was taught on Har Sinai. How is it right? Ayeka. Vibistu, right? I didn't know what that meant when I learned it, but I remember. Ayeka, Vibistu. And if you look at the letters of Ayeka, the same letters as Eicha. Okay, who are we to draw such a parallel? But in fact, the Tar Shabal Peh, the Medrash, in a number of places, in the Psicha of Eicha, and in Bereshis Rabbah, the Medrash tells us that the same way when we were exiled from Yushalayim, we lamented Eicha Yashva Badad, alas, she sits in solitude. The Rebbeinu Shalom also, when he chased Adam Harishon out of Gan Eden, he too lamented Ayeka Eicha. Eicha. Says the Psichta to Eicha Isdala, look at number 13. There's a pasuk in Hosea, Vehema ki Adam avru vris. They, in the times of the Churban, were like Adam. They violated the covenant. Says the Medrash, Rabbi Abahu Pasach. Rabbi Abahu began his drasha on Eicha from the following pasuk: Vehema ki Adam avru vris. Zeh Adam Harishon. They were like Adam. In what way were we like Adam Harishon in the times of the Churban? Says the Medrash, there are a number of parallels. Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Adam Harishon hechnasti osei legan Eden. I brought Adam into Gan Eden. Vitzivisiv, and I commanded him. I told him, don't eat the fruit. Don't eat the fruit. Whatever the fruit was, whether it was a grape, whether it was an esrog, whether it was a fig, whether it was grain. One thing we know it wasn't an apple. Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Adam Harishon, hechnasti osei legan Eden. V'tzivisiv, I commanded him. V'avar al tzivuyi, he violated my command. V'danti osei begerushin, I judged him by being exiled. Uv'shiluchin, by being sent out. V'kainanti olav eicha, and I lamented eicha. How do I know echnasti osei gan Eden? Shenemar v'yikach Hashem l'gevas adam v'yanachem v'gan Eden. V'tzivisiv, v'yitzav Hashem l'gevas adam leimor, don't eat. And he violated Shenemar Hamin Hoetz Asher Tzivisicha Levilti Achol Meno Acholta. And I was done him, I judged him begerushin Shenemar Vayigoresh Esa Adam. Vedanti Yosei B'Shiluchin Shenemar Vayishalacheu Hashem Migan Eden. Bekoinanti Olav Eicha. God lamented the immortal words Vayomer Loi Ayeka Eicha Ksiv. So too, says the Medrash, Hashem took Klal Yisrael, and He placed us in a virtual Gan Eden. Which Gan Eden? Eretz Yisrael. And Hashem commanded us. What's that? The Torah. V'avru al tzivuyi. Like it says, V'chol Yisrael avru al Torah secha. And I chased them out. Like it says in Hosea, Mi beisi agar Hashem. V'danti osoi b'shiluchin. Like it says, Shalach me'al panai. V'kainanti aleim, it says I lamented over them. Eicha yashva vadar. So here we have an amazing thing that the Medrash is telling us that history repeats itself. Adam Harishon was placed in paradise. He was given a mitzvah. He violated it. He was chased out, sent out, and God lamented for him. Well, we also sinned. We were commanded, we violated it, we were chased out, we were sent out, and God laments it. Question is, okay, Adam Harishon ate from the fruit, but we ate no fruits. In what way was our sin like the sin of Adam Harishon? Here the Medrash is making a parallel between Adam Harishon was commanded not to do something, and he violated it, and he was exiled. In what way was our sin like the sin of Adam Harishon? After all, we know during the Beis Rishon we violated the big three. Beis Sheni, we violated Lashon Hara. Adam Harishon just ate a fruit. In what way was his sin comparable to our sin? So we have an amazing Vilna Gaon, a eye-opening Vilna Gaon, who opens up the heavens for us. And the Vilna Gaon tells us that in fact Adam Harishon did not just eat a fruit, but actually Adam Harishon violated the big three. And the Gra doesn't explain how, and we'll have to explain that. The Gra just says Adam Harishon was Oived Avodah Zara, he violated Gilei Arayos, he violated Shvichas Damim. He doesn't say how, but he follows. Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov were the Gilgal of Adam Harishon. Each one of them respectively was Masakein, one of the big three. So Avraham Avinu says the Goin. By the way, this Goin is quoted by, this is in number 17. The Gra in number 17 is quoted by Rav David Cohen, who's Rosh Yeshiva of Hebron. And Rav David Cohen is brought in a Maimer in, not his Sefer, in the Sefer Oyel Moshe of Rav Scheinerman. Rav David Cohen quotes the Goin. The Goin says like this: Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov were Masakein, Adam Harishon, who violated all three Averos. Avraham Avinu, what was done with Avraham? Nimrod took him, he threw him in the fire. We know, what do you do with Avodah Zarah? Psilei Eloheihem Tisrafun Ba'esh. Avraham Avinu was Masakein, Adam Harishon, sin of Avodah Zarah. Say, but Adam Harishon never sinned with Avodah Zarah. Hold your horses, we'll get to that. But the Goin is saying that Avraham Avinu was Masakein Avodah Zarah. Yitzchak Avinu was Masakein Gilui Arayos. How's that? Where do Gilui Arayos start? Rashi says, Ayin Roya Lev Chaymed Klemaisa Nigmara. It all begins with the eyes. Yitzchak was Masakein the Arayos. How? Yitzchak was blind. Yaakov Avinu was Masakein Shvichas Damim. How's that? Yaakov went into Golus. The punishment for Ritzicha, for Shvichas Damim, is Golus. From this Goin we see, it's unclear how, but Adam Harishon in some form actually violated the big three. The big three. It's Davar Pella. Where does it say it in the Psukim? In the Psukim it just says he ate the fruit. And here we have the words of the Vilna Gaon that he actually violated the big three. Okay.
How could you have three Gilgulim for one person, all alive at the same time?
How could there be three Gilgulim? Especially the Chidah says, right, that they actually all spent 15 years of their life together. Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov all overlap 15 years, and on those 15 years, the world stands on. So how's it possible? So of course, the Harizal writes in the Shar HaGilgulim that it's possible. Actually the Arizal is talking about the Gilgal of Cain was Yisroi and Kairach and the Mitzri. How could one neshama have three Gilgal? He said not a problem, because the neshama has Naran, the Nefesh, the Ruach, and the Neshama, and each one has a different Gilgal, and beyond that is above. Yeah, you said it. Okay, so here we have the Goyin is saying that the Avos were the Gilgal of Adam Harishon. Each one was Masakein one Chet. Now the question is, Rabbi Isai. By the way, I just want to point out the Maral says it a little differently. The Maral explains differently how the three Avos in the Maral number 21, how each one of the Avos were Masakein a different Chet. And the Maral says something very interesting. The Maral says something very deep. In the Sefer Netzach Yisrael, Parak Daled, the Maral says fundamentally the Beis Hamikdash Rishon was different than the Bayis Sheni. The Bayis Rishon was B'zechus the Avos, and the Bayis Sheni was B'zechus Klal Yisrael. So he says like this: Adam Harishon sinned with the big three. Avraham was Masakein Gilui Arayos. How's that? Differently than the Goin. The Goin says Avram was Masakein Avodah Zarah. The Maral says Avram was Masakein Gilui Arayos, because the Gemara tells us in Bava Basra that Avraham Avinu was on a greater level than Eov. Eov said, Uma es boinen al basula, that not only would he not look at a married woman, he wouldn't even look at a woman who was never married. Eov would not even lay his eyes on a woman who was single. And Avraham Avinu was even greater. Avraham Avinu didn't even look at his own wife. Hinei no yadati ki isha yifas mareot. So we see Avraham Avinu was Masakein completely Avodah Zarah. Yitzchak was Masakein right, Avraham was Masakein Gilui Arayos. Thank you. Yitzchak was Masakein Avodah Zarah. He was Moser Nefesh al Kiddush Hashem. Yaakov was Masakein Shvichas Damim. How's that? We know Yaakov Avinu loy meis, so he counteracted Misa, and also he's the opposite of Esav. Esav is the Roitseach, Esav is an Admoini, Esav is a Shofech Damim. Also, Yaakov Avinu, the Gemara says, Loira Keri Miyamav. He was never Shofech Zera. He was never Tameh. In that way, he was the complete opposite, the antithesis of Misa Ba'olam. So Bayis Rishon, says the Maral, was B'schus Avos, and therefore, because they fell in Avodah Zarah, Gila Ras, and Shvichas Damim, the first Beis Hamikdash was destroyed. The second Beis Hamikdash, he says, was B'schus Klal Yisrael. Klal Yisrael is an Am. That's why the Bayis Sheni was destroyed because of Sinas China. But again, what we see from the Maral, what we see from the Goin, was that Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov were Mesakein, Adam Harishon's, Avodah Zarah, Gilei Arayos, and Shvichas Damim. But lo and behold, we have no understanding of in what way was Adam Harishon violated, and how did he violate Avodah Zarah, Gilei Arayos, and Shvichas Damim? He ate the fruit, but no way do we see he violated the big three. So Marv Rabbi say, for that you have to look at the Shlach Kadosh. The Shlach Kadosh says that even though the pasuk only makes reference to the fact that Adam Harishon ate from the Eitz Hadas, unbelievably, Adam Harishon in some way violated the big three. Says the Shla number 18 in Parshas Devarim. How's that? About 6 lines up. Hine Adam avar me'ein shalosh elu avodah zara gilei arayos shvichas damim. How? I'll tell you how. The Gemara says in Sanhedrin, Adam Harishon min haya. Adam Harishon was an apikoros. Now it doesn't mean the apikoros the way we refer to it. It means Adam Harishon lefi madregasai harama. He was on such a high level. He was Yitzir Kapav Shal HaKadosh Baruch Hu. If he's not listening to Hashem on some minute, microscopic level, he was begeder min. Number 2, Arayos. Says Gemara in Shabbos, Daf Kuf Mem Vav. The Nachash didn't just go over to Chava and say, Chava, have a piece of the fruit. Ba Nachash al Chava v'hital ba Zayama. The Nachash actually had relations with Chava. So there was Gilui Arayos. And what about Shvichas Damim? Well, the way the Shla says it is, Kayan came from the Zuham of the Nachash, he killed his brother, but we could say very simply, there is no one who is responsible for the deaths of more people than Adam Harishon. Adam Harishon brought Misa La'olam. Everybody who dies is because of the sin of Adam Harishon. In fact, if you ever read Sefer Chafetz Chaim, on the first page of Sefer Chafetz Chaim, if you ever got past that, the Chafetz Chaim, without quoting the Shla, says very clearly that Adam Harishon violated the big three. How's that? Says the Chafetz Chaim. Number 1, Ba'nachash al Chava. Number 20, V'hito ba'zuama, Harisha garam gilei arayos, Misa, Shvichas damim. And Adam Harishon violated the words of Hashem, and that is begeder. So you say, what does that have to do with Mikdash Sheni? Everything. Because how did the Nachash convince Chava to eat from the fruit? He spoke Lashon Hara on the Ribono Shel Olam. He said Hashem ate from the fruit, and that's how He created the world. Why don't you eat from the fruit, and you'll be like Him? So basically, what we see from the words of the Shla, from the words of the Chafetz Chaim, from the Vilna Gaon, from the Maral, is that history repeats itself. That even though in the Torah Shebachsav we only see that Adam Harishon ate from the fruit, but in that act lays the seeds of Avodah Zarah, of Gilei Arayos and Shvichas Damim. And Avraham was Mesakein, either Gilei Arayos or Avodah Zarah. And Yitzchak was Mesakein, either Avodah Zarah or Gilei Arayos. And Yaakov Avinu was Mesakein Ritzicha. And Hashem said, you know what? I chased Adam Harishon out of Gan Eden. I threw him out. I was megarish him. And I lamented, take 2. Let's try this again. We'll give you another chance. We're going to put you in Eretz Yisrael, paradise. I'm going to give you mitzvahs. And let's see if you could keep it this time. And we couldn't. And Hashem sent us out. And He chased us out. And ultimately, He lamented, Eicha Yashva Vadad Ha'ir Rabasiyam. In fact, Rabbi Say, when the Beis Hamikdash was put up, Take a look at number 15. What does the pasuk say? Vayehi b'yoim. Vayehi. What does Vayehi mean? The word Vayehi, says the Medrash, means something that once was came back again. When Hashem put Adam Harishon in Gan Eden, the Shechina was in Gan Eden, like the pasuk says. What if Vayishmu es kol Hashem lekim es halich bagon? But then Hashem left Gan Eden, and the Shechina did not come back until the Mishkan was put up again. So, Moreover, Rabbi, what we learn from here is that the Mikdash and the Mishkan was a virtual Gan Eden. In other words, the Medrash is saying very clearly that when Hashem put Adam Harishon in Gan Eden, the Shechina was in Gan Eden. Vayishma es hakoil Hashem mishalich bagon. And when Adam sinned, the Shechina was nostalgic, and it didn't come back until the Mishkan was put up. But then it left again by Churban Beis. So what we have to try to understand is, how is the Mishkan like Gan Eden? What is the Mishkan got to do with Gan Eden? Why is it that the Medrash understands the Shechina was in Gan Eden, it was chased out, and then it returned to the Mishkan? In what way is the Mishkan like Gan Eden? If you go back to the sin of Adam Harishon, look at number 23. Hayomer Hashem Elokim, Hein Ha'adam Haya Ka'achad Mimenu. Now that Adam made from the Yetz Hadas, he's like one of us. Ladas toivara, to know good and bad. V'yata pen yishlach yadai, v'lakach gam me'etzachayim. Maybe now he'll send out his hand. What's this business with the hand? Maybe now he'll send out his hand. Should say v'yata pen yikach pen ochal. From the Yetz HaChayim, V'chai L'olam. There's an extra word. Say, V'ata pen yoichal gam me'etz ha'chayim v'achal v'chai L'olam. What's Yishlach Yadai? Says the Gemara in Chulin, a big Yesod. The Yesod is that Hashem does not allow tzaddikim to stumble. There's a concept that Ein HaKadosh Baruch Hu maybe takala al yadan shel tzaddikim. God does not allow tzaddikim to do an Aveira. Hashem saves them. Hashem spares them. They have special siyata d'shmaya that tzaddikim are spared. But look in the lashon of the Gemara. The Gemara says, look at number 24, Chulin Daf Hey. It's a Gemara in Gittin as well. Hashta behemton shel tzaddikin ein HaKadosh Baruch Hu mevi takal yadon tzaddikin atzmon loy kol shekein. The lashon of the Gemara is Hashem does not allow tzaddikim to sin with their hands. It doesn't say Hashem doesn't allow tzaddikim to sin. The emphasis is al yadon, through their hands. If you look in the Navi Shmuel, it says V'tehi ruach Hashem ra el shol v'hu b'veisa yoshev v'chanisai biyadai v'David menagein biyad. David is playing with his hand. Really? No kidding. I thought he was playing with his feet. Obviously he's playing with his hands. All this emphasis on the hands. The Kohanim are mevarich with their hands. Their hands? Why their hands? Let them stand on their heads and do berachas kohanim with their feet. Let them spit wooden nickels. What do their hands have to do with it? Comes the Ben Ish Chai. And he quotes from the Sefer Vayalaket Yosef, who quotes from the Sefer Tiferes Hagershuni, who quotes from the great Makubal, the great Tzaddik, Rav Menachem Azariah Mipano, the Ramah Mipano, who lived from 1548 to 1628. Ramah Mipano was one of the greatest of all the Mekubalim. He was the Talmud of Rabbi Yisrael Saruk. He was the Talmud of the Arizal. The Ramah Mipano was also a student of the Ramak, Rav Moshe Cordovero, through his Sfarim. In fact, the Ramah writes that he actually received the Ramak Sefer from the Ramak himself. The Ramah Mipano was different than other Mekubalim in that he was not technical, but he was interested and focused on the moral lessons of the Kabbalah. The Ramah Mipano had a very saintly appearance, and this is what some claim what he looked like. This week, the Wednesday night share will be whether this is really what he looked like, or rather, the way the Chassam Sofer says he did not have a beard. Chassam Sofer writes, Ramah Mipano did not have a beard, and Simon Kuf Notes. We'll talk about that on Wednesday.
What's his name?
He was Ramah Mipano, Menachem Azariah Mipano. He wrote a Perush on the Rif. He wrote a Kitzer on the Rif. Alfasi Zuti. He wrote the Asara Mamoros. He wrote Yonas Elam. He wrote many Sifrei Kabbalah. The Ramah Mipano. And the Ramah Mipano is Megala, tremendous side. And that is when Adam Harishon ate from the Eitz Hadas. He looked at it, and it looked good. And he listened to his wife, so he sullied his ears. And he ate it, so he sullied his mouth and his digestive system. And every single cell in his body was sullied. There's only one part of his body that did not participate in the sin, and that is his hands. His hands never touched the fruit. He wanted to send out his hands, but they didn't want to go. You know why? God protects the hands of the tzaddik. The hands of Adam Harishon remained pristine. They never sinned. He looked, he heard, he saw, he ate, he digested. He didn't take them with his hands. The hands remained pristine. Why? Because Adam Harishon was a tzaddik. There never was a tzaddik like Adam Harishon. And therefore the Gemara in Chulin says, Ein HaKadosh Baruch Hu mevi takol al yedei tzaddikim. The hands of the righteous never sin. But now that he sinned, he's not a tzaddik anymore. Says the Pasuk, V'ata pen yishlach yadoi. Now that he sinned, now we're worried. Says Rebbe Shem, he may sully the one remaining part of his body that is pure. So we got to get him out of Gan Eden, because if he sullies his hands, he'll be a wreck. He won't have one part of his body that is pure and pristine. We got to preserve at least the hands. At least the hands. That's why Ein HaKadosh Baruch Hu mevi takol al yedei tzadikim. Says the Ben Ish Chai, that is why when Kohanim bless the people, there's only one part of the human body that remains pristine and was unaffected by the sin of Adam Harishon, and that are the Yadayim. Yad, two hands. There are two parts of the body that are pristine, were never affected by the sin of Adam Harishon. That is why David HaMelech, who we know, first of all, owes a great debt of gratitude to Adam Harishon, because when Hashem showed Adam Dar V'Darshav, Dar V'Manhigav, he sees somebody by the name of David who is not destined to live, and Adam donates 70 years of his life to him. And the reason is, that Arizal says, because it was actually for himself, because in fact David HaMelech was the Gilgal of Adam Harishon. Adam stands for Adam David Mashiach. That is why David HaMelech, the Navi emphasizes, played the harp, B'yad! To be masake in the chet of Adam Harishon. At least the hands are still pure. That's why the Torah says, V'yata pen yishlach yadoi. Hashem says, we got to get him out of here quick before his hands are sullied. It says in Pirkei Avos, look at number 28. There were 10 miracles that happened every day in the Beis Hamikdash. A woman never miscarried from the meat, right? When a pregnant woman smells food, especially meat, and she has a craving, you better give it to her. If you don't give her what she craves, it could be fatal. The meat in the Beis Hamikdash never rot. You leave raw meat out, it becomes putrid very quickly. The meat in the Beis Hamikdash, it never rot. There were no flies in the Beis Hamikdash. You ever go to a shlachtois? It's a fly hoise. V'la'ira keri l'koyin gadol. B'yayim HaKippurim. The Kohen Gadol never had an emission. Says the Chassid Yavitz, what do all of these things have in common? The Beis Hamikdash was one makom in this world where there's no misa. All of these things, miscarriage, degeneration, decomposition, flies, kerry, this all represents the breakdown of man. Everybody knows, as time passes by, the human body decomposes. It begins at birth. Nobody gets better. Day after day, the body declines, the body decomposes. This is all a result of the Chet of Adam Harishon. There is only one place in this world that is immune to the effects of the sin of Adam Harishon. Where is that? Beis Hamikdash. In the Beis Hamikdash, there's no death. There are no ramifications of death. There's no decomposition. The meat doesn't spoil. Women don't miscarry. Things don't break down. There are no flies. The Beis Hamikdash, in other words, you ever see somebody comes back, he says, guess what I have in this bottle? What do you have? Air! From where? From Eretz Yisrael. Where did you buy it? I bought it in the airport for $50. Yeah, right? But at least the person thinks that they were able to body the Avira Da'ar. If we were able to body Gan Eden before the sin of Adam Harishon, you know what we would call it? Beis Hamikdash, Mishkan. It's the one place of the world which is immune to the effects of the Chet. What we'd like to suggest is, and if you had to name that place, if we would have to name the place in this world which is immune, which is not subject to the sin of Adam Harishon, Yad, the two hands. Because the two hands were the only two parts of the body which are unaffected by the sin of Adam Harishon. By the way, the Vilna Gaon says something similar but not exactly. We've used it a different time. This is a chidush. What we want to suggest is that the reason why everything associated with the Beis Hamikdash is called Yadid. What does the word Yadid mean? Where does the word Yadid come from? The Gaon says Yad, the two Yadayim. Why is the Mikdash called the two Yadayim? Because it's the one place in this world which is immune, which is not subject to the decomposition and the ramifications of death of the sin of Adam Harishon. That is why, says the Gemara Menachos, what is the Beis Hamikdash? Yavai Yadid, Ben Yadid, V'yivna Yadid, Li Yadid, V'chelko Shal Yadid, V'yiskapru Bai Yadidim. That perhaps is the secret of why everything associated with the Beis Hamikdash is called Yad. And that is why Rabbi say, when we end off Eicha, when we conclude Eicha, who says I'm wrapping up? When we conclude Eicha, how do we conclude? Hashivenu Hashem Eilecha V'nashuva Chadesh Yameinu Kekedem. We ask Ribbon Shalom, bring us back to Kedem. What's Kedem? Adam Harishon and Gan Eden. What's Adam Harishon and Gan Eden have to do with the Beis Hamikdash? It has everything to do with the Beis Hamikdash. That is what the Beis Hamikdash is. The Beis Hamikdash is a bottled version of the world of Adam Harishon and Kodim Achid. In fact, the Chassid Yavitz writes explicitly in his commentary of the Mishnah on Parakeh, Mishnah Zayin, look at number 29. He says, Kvar Kosafti ki koidem chetoi shel Adam Harishon lo haya shum kilkol ba'olam uvechetoi hakol neskalkel v'lachem v'beis Hamikdash shahisa shchina lama yera shum kilkol. And then he says at the end, the Beis Hamikdash is makom shahaya kamai shahaya Adam Harishon koidem chetoi. That's our tefillah. Our tefillah is chadesh yameinu kekedem. What does that have to do with the Beis Hamikdash? That is exactly what the Beis Hamikdash is, and that is why the tefillah that is associated with Beis Hamikdash is what? Bihinayam Hashem Elokeinu Aleinu Umasei Yadeinu Kana Aleinu Umasei Yadeinu Kananeu. The Beis Hamikdash is called Yadid, the two Yadayim that were never involved in the sin of Adam Harishon. So we're all mispalel. Shiveinu Hashem Eilecha V'nashuva Chadesh Yameinu Kekedem. Oh yeah. Sorry.
Very nice.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.